Hey kids, it's Scallywag Sunday. Hey kids, it's Scallywag Sunday. So today I want to talk about my used-to-be favorite pirate game. This is Sea of Thieves, an online multiplayer action-adventure pirate game released in 2018 by Rare under the Microsoft umbrella. Initially, Microsoft pushed Rare to get the game out quickly, which resulted in it being pretty empty at launch. But since then, they've added a lot of content to the point where there's something for everyone in this game. Various quests involving digging up buried treasure, hunting down undead skeleton captains, simple merchant deliveries. If that's not for you, there's a lot of organic world events like attacking sea forts, boss fights, fighting a megalodon shark, the kraken, and AI skeleton ships. There's also a good number of story-driven adventure missions that involve exploring, solving puzzles, occasional boss fights. So that's a brief overview. This video is more geared toward people who already know what Sea of Thieves is, but I thought I'd do a quick intro anyway. The point is, the world is just packed with places to explore, things to do. I loved this game. I pre-ordered it when it came out in 2018, along with a couple of my friends. And it's great because there's really nothing else quite like it out there. It delivers a really unique experience. Well, you may have noticed, given the title of this video, that I've left out one important part. And that is the player versus player element of Sea of Thieves. The world is shared, so at any given time you can encounter other player ships, which you can befriend or battle. I feel to a lot of people fighting other player ships is something that we were excited for when this game was announced. Certainly I was. It wasn't the biggest draw by any means, but it was still a part that we were excited to experience. It was a part of the whole experience, was fighting other people. Well, there's a problem with PvP in Sea of Thieves, and that is, it's horrendous. See, we were excited for PvP. When I say that, I'm talking about like epic ship battles, you know, just ripping each other apart, broadsiding until one ship eventually goes down in flames. You know, like thrilling ship-to-ship combat, like we were shown and somewhat promised in the early trailers of this game. So here's the deal. I wrote this whole script for the video, and then while playing Sea of Thieves with my friends and open crewing, the funny thing is, so I'd pre-written the script, and I actually found myself, while gathering this footage, that I was actually really enjoying the PvP, which could be related to the fact that I'm coming back to the game for the first time in a couple years, probably. So I want to amend kind of the statements that I was going to make. Initially, I was going to take a harder stance on PvP. I haven't changed my opinion per se. Yeah, this is kind of an afterthought, but in the video, I pre-recorded the audio. I was initially going to... Obviously, the title is still PvP, like, sucks. Which... Yeah. But which I'm not going to change because that's kind of a clickbait thing. Sorry. I do think that there are significant issues with PvP. Rather than sticking to this long and complicated... and somewhat malicious script that I wrote, I'm gonna take a lighter stance, and I just want to say that the biggest issue with Sea of Thieves is its PvP is kind of off. I think it doesn't fit what you would have expected, which is, you know, probably what I just said, all the ship combat. And indeed, the ship combat that I just showed you from the trailers, it doesn't happen like that most of the time. This game is great, but the biggest issue with it is the PvP aspect. And I think that the main problem is just that it's too player v player focused. There's too much focus on player versus player and not ship versus ship. Because when you think about like pirates and it's like, oh, I want to like be a pirate, you want to like get into ship battles, but that doesn't happen as much, I think, as it should, because the strategy ultimately is to just drop in the water and board the enemy's ship and then just drop their anchor, and then basically you just spawn kill them until your like one friend that you left on your ship sails around and just kind of barrages them until they sink with absolutely zero opposition. You know, they were never even given a chance to fight back. That's kind of the prevailing strategy in this game, and it's not very fun from either perspective. Of course, getting spawn killed like that's not fun at all. But honestly, like, if you're the one doing the spawn killing, you're just sitting there, and because of some loading screen issues with this game that it sometimes has, often you're just blunderbussing someone before they've even had a chance to do anything at all once they respawn. And it's just like, it's fine. No, it's not fine. I mean, like, it's not as fun as it could be. It doesn't feel very rewarding to me, honestly. I think also it's confounded by the fact that the game is reaching a certain maturity where the player base, I'm not sure, I didn't look this up, so if I'm wrong, then who cares? But I don't think the player base is growing all that much, and there are two types of players. There are players that want to have the relaxing PvE experience and just kind of like do some missions, like not intense gaming. They just want to enjoy the beautiful world. It is very pretty. It can be a relaxing experience. And then there's people, I think, like us, me and my friends. We loved this game, like I said. We played it all the time. It was devoid of content at launch. Now it's been filled out quite nicely, but having been on the game as long as we have, since like the beta, and in my friend's case the technical alpha, we've seen everything. At this point, this many years into the game, we've done everything multiple times. We've done all the quests, we've done all the adventures, we've like earned all the achievements. We've kind of maxed out our ability to try new things. So while we were excited for PvP in the beginning, we kind of live for it now. It's the only thing that remains in this game unpredictable. And so it's the part now that keeps the game exciting. Of course, we do the new adventures when they come out, and we do the new missions when they come out, and they are fun, but they're somewhat repetitive when you've played as much as we have. And so that's why we find ourselves like seeking out the PvP has some fundamental flaws, but now that like it's becoming more of a focus, I think, in the late game, and I feel like this is the case for most people. I think I just wanted to talk briefly about some of these problems that are long running. That was entirely unscripted, and so I think that me editing this is not going to have a great time because it's probably really out of any sort of logical order. So I've recorded several ship encounters that we get into. All of them ultimately were hostile because this video is about PvP, and I'm trying to get footage of PvP. Honestly, the current state might even be excusable if the player versus player mechanics were good, but honestly, they're shit. They are bad, and they've always been bad too. It's gotten somewhat better now in the game's maturity, but the hit registration has always been a problem. Additionally, though, it's recently been nerfed, I think, in this, like, the current update. But double gunning used to be a huge problem, and then it was kind of still a problem, and because they keep slowing down the delay for switching guns, and they've really nerfed it now, but, like, it's still bad, because basically what double gunning is you used to be able to switch weapons and fire them really quick, so 2 shots rapid succession, you could essentially one hit anybody. Brings in the other key problem with the player versus player is that everyone you fight, like, not everyone, but anyone who's, like, good, they're just jumping around like a maniac, because you can just jump from side to side, back and forth, like, non-stop. And so it kind of, like, mutes the double gun nerf. And a lot of people will defend this on posts like Reddit and stuff, you know, where I was doing some research before making this video, and they're like, oh, it's just skill. But, like, you're really just mashing the like A or the space or whatever the PlayStation button is. You're really just mashing the jump button over and over and just moving around and buying yourself that time to hit that second shot. And the one thing I'll grant is that the aim is a skill. I mean, if you can hip fire someone with a sniper from like 10 feet away, that's good aim. It's really hard to shoot someone who's just leapfrogging everywhere because well, A, because it's hard to hit a moving target, and B, you're not getting any help from the hit registration, so it's a pretty cheesy strat. You'd think that the sword would be the obvious counter, where if you could get up in their face and just hack at them, they would, you know, they won't be able to dodge. Well, I mean, No, not really. Um, the sword and everything surrounding sword fighting in this pirate game is just so unbelievably lackluster. The swings are really slow, the blocking is a joke, and there's no alternate swings or counters, heavy hits, anything like that. So you have one swing, so you're against this guy, and he's just jumping all over the place, and you'd be hard-pressed to hit him with a gun, so you go with the sword. Well, the slow swing speed combined with the dodgy hit registration means he's still pretty hard to hit, and after missing one hit with the sword, there's like a solid 1 second delay before you can swing again, at which point you've been barrel stuffed. If you do land that sword hit, there's a max out at 3 strikes. You can do a 3-hit combo, and that won't kill a full health player. And after that combo is over, there's an even longer delay before you can swing again, at which point you're getting blasted. If you get someone with that first sword swing, the stun is so bad that the next two are basically unavoidable. So if you get one, you're getting all three, which that's why people say the sword's bullshit. But like all the stuff we've already talked about is also bullshit. So I honestly think that the grounds for this debate are not very strong, especially when you or the enemy are employing these kind of strategies. Whether you lose or win, it doesn't really feel, even if you're like just steamrolling someone, it isn't that fun. The main problem is that this boarding strategy, the like going into the water and climbing up the ladder, drop the anchor, all that we talked about, it's just, honestly, it's kind of like a cop-out to naval combat. It negates the need for any sort of ship battle if you're really good at it. If you succeed in doing that, and this is the prevailing strategy in this game, I mean, you're winning the fight, I guess, but at what cost? Because what you've done is you've essentially negated the need for the naval combat. You've stopped the ship battle before it even started, and you've killed the people before they even have had a chance to fight back. And it just doesn't feel right, and I think that the changes that could be made to fix it are pretty simple. So with that being said, here's a short list of changes that would really improve the PvP situation in Sea of Thieves.
Oh, shit. Try to live after you do it. It's gonna blow up next to... Oh, shit!
Boarding an enemy ship and attacking the players and killing them is going to be essential no matter what. At some point, boarding will be necessary in combat. But I think there's boarding that is necessary and appropriate, which would be after you've disabled the enemy ship and battered them with the cannons, and they're pretty much dead in the water just trying to repair. That's when a board should occur, I think. So there's that, there's the proper boarding, and then there's what we might call premature boarding, which is where you just shoot yourself out of the cannon, or sword launch out, or just drop off the back of the ship, like we can see in this case here. This guy keeps trying to climb up the ladders. He's really just trying to escape a battle that he started. So to set the context for this particular section, we had completed a Fort of Fortune, and then this sneaky sloop came in and stole the key to the fort and then ran off with it. So naturally we gave chase. While we're chasing him, he's just dropping off the back of the ship over and over, and he's trying to grab our ladder and drop our anchor. And the thing is, there's absolutely no negative consequence to this. He can do this as many times as he likes, and if he succeeds even once, it's over for us. And he did try this about 8 times. So this is a good case of what I would call premature boarding. Premature boarding is a big part. We could say that it's our #1 culprit for what's killing the good PvP before it starts. The ability to roll up the ladders, I think, would negate this. So the ladders are rolled up, then the only way you would be allowed to board is if you got really close to the ship, or if you succeeded in launching yourself from a cannon, which honestly, if you're good enough with the cannon to launch yourself and land on an enemy ship from really far away, I think you deserve to get that board. But honestly, the hanging out in the water and just waiting for the ship to go over you, and then like getting killed as this guy was, and just trying it again and again, that's just bullshit. And I think that should probably be gone. So having the ability to stop that from happening would really, it would deter the strategy of ship-to-ship avoidance, and it would encourage ship versus ship combat, which I think would be really good for the game. Generally, I would believe that the people who are opposed to this change are in the minority. I think generally the more casual player base and the majority player base would be open to this change. Then I can hear you say, What happens if you want to sneak up on a ship that's on an island, like I did earlier in this video? And what if they have their ladders rolled up? To which I could say, well, A, if they're at an island, they'll probably have their ladders rolled down, or I think it would be reasonable also to have the ladders automatically roll up when the anchor is raised and automatically roll down when the anchor is dropped. It could be a slippery slope that leads to workarounds where the enemies would just try to hit you with the cursed cannonball, the anchor ball, so then your anchor would drop, and then they would just proceed to go about the same strategy that they do now. If you're going to have it fixed to where the ladders were tied to the anchor being up or down, I think that the anchor ball would honestly have to be removed. Otherwise, it would really just nullify the change. Again, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to having the ladders tied to the anchor, but I think it leads to a slippery slope of more bullshit strategies where you would just do like close passes or just repeated ram attacks, trying to get on and drop the anchor. I think it should be up to the player to roll up and down when they choose, just to avoid that kind of exploiting that would ultimately lead to the change not meaning as much. Another thing that's I never touched on, it's kind of niche, is that in rough waves on the sloop and the brig, I think you can actually grab the harpoon guns that are at the front of the ship and board that way. And so if the option to roll up the ladders was added, this would obviously become, like, people would still try the same shit. So this would become the new way to get on to the ship, is just to kind of go in rough seas and grab the harpoons. That the harpoon grabbing, that needs to be fixed. And I think it actually has been fixed. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they've actually fixed that already, which is good. I agree with that change. I think that you should not be able to get on the ship using that method. This is kind of a smaller change, honestly. I've never seen anyone talk about this, but I wanted to touch on it. I'm convinced that this is like scripted into the game. I've never really seen anyone else talk about it, but I'm so, after playing the game for as long as I have, I'm so convinced that it is scripted in, that when a ship battle or a ship chase is going on for too long, that the game will attempt to interfere by spawning in an entity, be it an AI ship or a megalodon. My friend who agrees with me on this has said the Kraken. I'm not sure. Based off how I know how the Kraken operates, I don't think that's the case, but definitely the megalodon and the AI ships, 9 times out of 10, the entity is spawning on the pursuer. And that's no different in the video that you see here. We were chasing these people for about 20 minutes, and then the megalodon spawns, and it's just, we didn't engage with it, we didn't fire at it, and usually, normally, they'll go away if you don't do that, but because we're in a ship chase here, the megalodon goes immediately to attacking us, and every time it hits us, it throws us off course, and it's just an annoyance that, like, that shit's gotta go, especially in combination with the ladder grabbing, where this guy has like infinite attempts at the ladder grab, essentially. And in fact, you can see that he boarded when we were hit by the megalodon, which he didn't succeed at, but I was knocked off the ship. And honestly, like, that shit's gotta go. Anyways, I'm convinced that the game will help whoever's being chased, and I think that that's really counterintuitive for the developer's policy of keeping it fair and balanced. That's kind of, this is more, I'm sorry, this has been more of a personal gripe for me, but like, I'm convinced that that's scripted in the game, and that's BS, and that's gotta go. Another problem that we can see on the screen now is the way the meta is now, how I've been kind of hinting at, is that there really is no punishment for just kind of doing this over and over and over. So we see these people in this galleon, they just would go at us, and they would all try to board. Every single one of them would try to board every time with complete disregard for their ship. So this happened, I think, a couple times. I don't have footage of all of it because I was streaming on and off, but basically they would come near us or go near us, or we would go to them, and they would all get off the ship, and we would just obliterate their ship, or they would crash into us and it would sail off and sink. Anyway, every time they did this, their ship would sink within seconds, because there was nobody on it. I think the goal here was that they would all get on and kill us and anchor us, and then they would just spawn kill us until the initial damage from them crashing into us just sank us after however long. They came close once, they never actually succeeded. These people were definitely better than us at PvP. They were certainly better than me. In the end, we were able to stop some of them from boarding, and there was never more than 2 on our ship at a time, and so we were eventually 4 versus 2. We were able to, get them and kill them. And with their ship already sunk, they would just spawn at their ship halfway across the map, but then they would just come back and do it again. And I think that that's kind of like, you should be punished for that. The complete disregard for your ship, there should be some sort of like negative consequence for that type of behavior. And a lot of people have talked about this. I think that there should be a force, it should force a server migration after you've been sunk by the same crew for the 3rd consecutive time. So let's say you see someone, you want to take their loot, you get in a scrap. They sink you, you spawn across the map, and you decide to come back. They sink you again. A lot of people would say after the 2nd one, I'm being kind of generous with the 3rd one. I think 2nd or 3rd. I would say 3rd just to be on the safe side. So if you come back a 3rd time, and you scrap it out and they beat you again, you should be force migrated to a new server, because as you're spawning a new ship, your ship gets new supplies, you come back and these people, they haven't died yet. You're just draining their supplies, and it doesn't really matter to you because you're a fresh spawn, you have new supplies. So there should be some sort of punishment for that, and I think that's a good solution.
That bastard. I'll set my own ship on fire to get you, you son of a bitch. Nice one. Right here.
I believe that the player versus player mechanics need a fundamental overhaul. It needs like a complete rework. It's really like clunky and slow and janky. It's really bad. I think a way to get around maybe the double gunning stuff that we were talking about earlier would be to force the player to have the sword as one of their weapons and then to choose one of the 3 firearms. So you would have to have a sword in one of your weapon slots. I don't feel super strongly about that change. I think it would probably help, but in addition to that, another change that would couple well with that is adding extra sword attacks. Like, so you'd have a regular attack, just, you know, so a regular swipe like the one there is now, probably a thrusting attack, like a jab, and then maybe a heavy swing, like an overhead, or just a heavy version of the normal swing that does, 2 times damage or something like that. I think adding that variety to the sword combat would really improve it. Similar to the variable sword hits, they could actually implement a functional difference between the swords that we see, because some swords are like really fat and some are really long, and so there's like rapier-like swords, and there's like regular swords. Some are more curved, some are really like large. I would understand their reasoning for not doing it, but a functional difference between the sword types would be a cool addition as well. But as for now, I think just having different attacks that are the same for all swords makes a little bit more sense. Another one that's really simple, I wouldn't say some people have said a stamina bar. I don't think a stamina bar is a very good idea, but I certainly think that adding a cooldown to the jump, not a super long, but just long enough, maybe every maybe there's like a 1 second cooldown or 1.5 second cooldown, just a short cooldown. This would of course have to come in addition to sword changes to make swordplay better, but I think that would certainly improve the PvP situation. The developers have always said that they wanted the ship combat to be fair and balanced, and that's led to a lot of balancing changes that ultimately have left the galleon kind of a poor choice, where a sloop can easily be the galleon, but we're not really going to talk about that today. But I think people have always talked about wanting ship customization, and the developers didn't want the game to be pay to win, which is understandable, although I do think that small aspects of customizing your ship would be able to factor in nicely. They don't necessarily, maybe they don't even have to cost gold. You can just like equip them at the shipwright. It wouldn't necessarily be pay to win. It would just be choosing a different strategy, which I think is totally fine. It adds a lot of variety and maybe keep the encounters a little more interesting. I'm not going to break down a full list because a lot of people have suggested a lot of different customization things, like a ram, hardened hull, blah blah blah. The one that I think is the least obtrusive is, now that we have the rowboat with the small cannon on it, I think that it would be an interesting option to switch your harpoon guns on the front of the ship into those like small cannons, which would effectively give the ship chase guns, but you're giving up your harpoon. I think that would be kind of cool to see that. It would change the mechanics of the chase, which would couple well with the rolling up ladders. It would just change up how ship chasing and how ship fighting works, if you chose to go with that change. I think it would be interesting. I think it would shake things up a little bit. I think it would be good for the game. Obviously, there are more changes, like people want to have like grappling hooks and boarding axes, and they get more and more complicated and more in turn difficult for the developers to add in. So I wanted to keep it simple. That was a short, simple list of things that could easily and greatly improve the PvP experience in Sea of Thieves. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I also hope you agree with me, but if you don't, it's a free world. So thanks again for watching, and until next time.